The Deer Hunter is a 3-hour emotional mugging disguised as cinema, proving that the Academy loves trauma as long as it claims to be art. The absolute chaos behind the camera was every bit as deranged as what made it onto the screen. Get ready for the real weird secrets you never knew about the Deer Hunter, which includes real rats, real prisoner of war protesters, and chemical sprays to kill the landscape. Number 1. The unbearable tension of the roulette scenes. The Russian roulette scenes are the film's most iconic and terrifying moments. They are scenes of almost unbearable psychological torture, and Cimino went to insane lengths to make sure the fear on the actors' faces was real. To crank up the tension, all the slapping in these scenes was 100% real. But De Niro wasn't satisfied with just hitting his co-workers in the face. Oh no. He suggested Christopher Walken should be slapped by one of the guards without warning. So Walken's wide-eyed look of sheer betrayal wasn't acting. It was him wondering if Hollywood had a workers' compensation policy. De Niro then took things even further into possible homicide territory. He actually insisted they load a real bullet into the revolver. Don't worry, it wasn't in the firing chamber, and he and John Cazale checked it obsessively before every take. But the simple fact that a live round was in the cylinder infused every click of the hammer with a very real sense of death. Number 2. The helicopter stunt that almost decapitated the stars. As if the raft incident wasn't terrifying enough, another near-fatal accident happened during the bridge escape. De Niro and John Savage were supposed to be rescued by chopper, but the pilots they hired were local Thai military guys with about as much experience in precision stunt flying as I have in brain surgery. As the chopper swooped in, the pilot misjudged the distance and the skids got tangled in the bridge's rope handholds. Even worse, the chopper's powerful rotors sliced right through the actors' safety cables. For one terrifying moment, De Niro and Savage were left dangling 60 feet above a rocky river with no safety lines, realizing their life insurance policies didn't cover killed by discount helicopter. They were screaming at the crew in the helicopter to warn them. Interestingly, John Savage apparently stayed in character, shouting, "Michael!" De Niro, in a full-blown panic, broke character and yelled back, "Savage, for Christ's sake, we're not in character anymore. We're not in the fudging movie." They had no choice but to drop into the water below. Miraculously, they survived. Footage of them genuinely yelling warnings is still in the final cut. Number 3. Method acting or torture. Cimino's hygiene mandate. Michael Cimino didn't just want his actors to look like they were suffering in Vietnam. He wanted them to reek like it too. So he came up with a rule straight out of Guantanamo. No showers, no fresh clothes, no deodorant. Basically, his hygiene policy was smell like despair. The cast was forced to stew in the same sweat-soaked, jungle-marinated costumes for days. By all accounts, they smelled like a locker room inside a sewage plant. Extras would walk past the set and wonder if a wild animal had died under the floorboards. According to the crew, the stench was overwhelming. The actors were miserable and, by all accounts, smelled absolutely terrible. But when you watch the film, their exhaustion, their filth-caked faces, their sheer physical misery, it isn't acting. It's the genuine result of the punishing conditions their director forced on them. Number 4. A production spiraling out of control. Every big movie has problems, but The Deer Hunter wasn't just having problems. It was a runaway train with the brakes cut. The film got the green light with a budget of $8.5 million. But director Michael Cimino, a man whose artistic vision was matched only by his obsessive, tyrannical perfectionism, had other ideas. The budget started to balloon. Then it exploded, finally landing somewhere around $15 million, almost double what the studio agreed to. This wasn't a slight overage, it was a financial kamikaze mission that terrified Universal executives. They saw a director running wild, convinced his vision couldn't be compromised by something as trivial as math. Studio exec Tom Mount later talked about the sheer panic as the costs just kept climbing. He sent in a legendary editor to try and stop the bleeding, but it was like trying to stop a hurricane with a butterfly net. This financial chaos created insane pressure, but it was also the fire in which the film's gritty, epic, and expensive scale was forged. Cimino wasn't just making a movie. He was building a world, and worlds, as he proved, don't come cheap. Number 5. The Gospel of Realism. No sound stages allowed. Most directors in the 70s were happy to fake it on a Hollywood soundstage. Cimino, on the other hand, treated sound stages like holy water to a vampire. He demanded everything be shot on location. Every single scene, from the fiery guts of a Pennsylvania steel mill to the chaotic, humid streets of Saigon, had to be shot on a real location. Authenticity was his religion. This decision was, to put it mildly, a logistical nightmare. It meant hauling tons of gear across 3 states and then halfway around the world to Thailand, a country with basically no infrastructure for a giant Hollywood production. The fictional town of Clairton, Pennsylvania, was actually a Frankenstein's monster, stitched together from 8 different towns. There was no artifice to hide behind. The grit, the heat, the cold, the exhaustion, it was all real, and it all ended up on screen. Number 6. A bar built for the film became a real-life hangout. Cimino's obsession with authenticity went into every corner of his world, including the bar where the friends hang out before their lives are destroyed. Instead of just finding a real bar, Cimino ordered one built from scratch in an empty storefront in Mingo Junction, Ohio, for $25,000. And no, this wasn't just a set. It was a fully functional, perfectly detailed blue-collar saloon called Welsh's Bar. It was so real that something incredible happened. Local steelworkers, the exact guys the film was about, started wandering in between takes, thinking it was the new neighborhood spot. They'd order beers and play pool. The line between the movie and reality just dissolved. That same realism extended to the steel mill, a real, operational U.S. steel plant in Cleveland nicknamed the Widowmaker. It was a hellish, dangerous place with temperatures soaring over 180 degrees. The studio was so terrified for its stars that it took out a massive $5 million insurance policy just to let them stand there. The actors weren't pretending. They were on the furnace floor, surrounded by molten steel, living the life their characters were about to leave behind forever. Number 7. The Bizarre Truth Behind the Deer. With a title like The Deer Hunter, you'd think the deer would at least be accurate, right? Nope. The majestic buck in the movie wasn't even a Pennsylvania white-tailed deer. It was a Eurasian red deer, imported like some kind of antlered foreign exchange student. Cimino's obsession with realism apparently stopped at, "Hey, close enough, it's got 4 legs and horns." But the weirdness doesn't stop there. The story goes that the deer Michael lets go later in the film, the one that signals his profound change, was a seasoned pro. It was supposedly the very same deer famous for starring in TV commercials for the Hartford Insurance Company. A symbol of American financial security was now playing a symbol of lost innocence in one of the most brutal anti-war films ever made. So next time you watch De Niro tearfully let the deer go, remember, you're looking at a commercial actor with better credits than most struggling humans in Hollywood. Number 8. The heartbreaking final performance of John Cazale. John Cazale had one of the greatest streaks in film history, 5 movies, 5 Best Picture nominations. The man's resume is more flawless than De Niro's skincare routine. But behind The Deer Hunter, he was fighting a private battle. Cazale had terminal lung cancer, and he knew his time was running out. He was in a relationship with his co-star, a young Meryl Streep, who only took the part of the vague girlfriend so she could be with him during the shoot. When the studio found out how sick Cazale was, they wanted him fired. He was an uninsurable risk who might not live long enough to finish the movie, but Meryl Streep gave them an ultimatum. If you fire John, I walk. Robert De Niro, who desperately wanted Cazale in the film, backed her up and went even further. When the studio refused to cover Cazale's insurance, De Niro quietly paid for it himself. To accommodate his failing health, they shot all of Cazale's scenes first. He poured the last of his strength into that role. John Cazale died in March 1978, right after filming wrapped. He never got to see the masterpiece he helped create. Number 9. The river scene that nearly became a tragedy. When you think of Thailand's River Kwai, you probably imagine a postcard. For Robert De Niro and John Savage, it was more like a watery death trap. They were filming an escape scene clinging to a log raft when a cable suddenly snapped. Instead of acting scared, they got to actually be scared, because now they were untethered and drifting straight toward the open sea like two pieces of Oscar bait driftwood. Amidst the genuine panic with his stars floating away, Cimino had one thought: keep the cameras rolling. He screamed at the crew to keep filming, to capture the real terror of the moment. Hollywood calls that vision. Everyone else calls it manslaughter with artistic intent. Number 10. The wedding scene was a marathon of exhaustion. The opening hour of the film is almost entirely one long, immersive wedding scene. On screen, it's an immersive celebration of community. Off-screen, it was less joyful tradition and more alcohol-fueled endurance trial. Cimino shot the scene over 5 straight days with real food, real vodka, and a director's mantra of "Don't stop filming until someone collapses." He kept the cameras rolling on a non-stop dance party that pushed his actors to the brink. You know that moment in the film where De Niro and John Cazale's characters collapse on the floor during a dance? Well, it wasn't scripted. It was a moment of genuine, unadulterated exhaustion from two actors who physically could not go on. They literally fell down, and Cimino kept it in the movie. If you think that slaps, keep on watching because there's more where that came from. And how about you slap that like and subscribe button whilst you're there too. Number 11. The difficult search for an authentic slap. Cimino's demand for authenticity created a weird casting problem in Thailand. He needed someone to play the vicious overseer of the Russian roulette game, a man who had to repeatedly and convincingly slap Robert De Niro in the face. This was harder than it sounds. The first guy they hired in Thailand was too timid, like he was afraid De Niro's cheekbones would sue him. Cimino wanted real fury, not gentle pats from grandma. The casting agent eventually found a local Thai man who was perfect for one very specific reason. He harbored a deep, personal dislike of Americans. He wasn't an actor, but he had the genuine animosity the part needed. He was hired on the spot. His slaps weren't a performance, they were fueled by real disdain, and the shock you see on De Niro's face is a direct result of it. Number 12. The spit that nearly broke De Niro. If being slapped repeatedly wasn't enough, Cimino decided the Russian roulette scenes needed more juice, literally. He pulled Christopher Walken aside and whispered, "Hey, in the middle of the scene, spit in De Niro's face." Walken, who has never once turned down a chance to make someone uncomfortable, did exactly that. Mid-take, without warning, he hawked one right in De Niro's face. De Niro had no idea it was coming. His reaction was pure, unadulterated shock and fury. He wasn't acting. He was reportedly so genuinely enraged by the unscripted disrespect that he nearly walked off the set and quit the film.
Dickie, I love you. You're my friend. What are you doing?
Number 13. The film's controversial script origins. A movie that became the definitive cinematic statement on the Vietnam War originally had nothing to do with Vietnam. It was born from a spec script called The Man Who Came to Play, a story about people who go to Las Vegas to play high-stakes Russian roulette. A producer bought it for just $19,000. He hired Michael Cimino, who, along with another writer, completely reworked it, taking the core idea of Russian roulette and dropping it into the hellscape of the Vietnam War. This later erupted into a bitter Hollywood fight over who wrote what. In the end, all 4 writers involved were nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. Number 14. The film's official cultural sanctification. Despite all the chaos, the controversies, and the historical fabrications, The Deer Hunter achieved the ultimate establishment seal of approval. In 1996, the Library of Congress selected it for preservation in the United States National Film Registry. This is an honor reserved for films deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. It's a formal acknowledgement that a film is a vital piece of America's cultural heritage. It was official recognition that, for all its flaws, the movie captured something essential about the trauma of war. It was no longer just a controversial movie. It was now a protected national treasure. Number 15, setting a new brutal standard for war films. When The Deer Hunter came out in 1978, it completely changed the game for war movies. It was one of the first major Hollywood films about Vietnam to actually be filmed on location in Southeast Asia, lending it a gritty, sweltering authenticity audiences hadn't seen before. But its impact went deeper. It set a new standard for psychological depth. It wasn't about battlefield heroics, it was about trauma. It showed the before, during, and after, focusing on the complete devastation of its characters' souls. This unflinching, raw approach paved the way for other gritty war films like Platoon and Full Metal Jacket, proving audiences were ready for a more honest and harrowing look at the human cost of war. Number 16, the unseen physical toll on the actors. The commitment of the lead actors went way beyond just learning lines. De Niro called it his most physically exhausting film ever. To prepare, he spent time with real steelworkers in their homes and bars. To achieve the hollowed-out, ghost-like look of Nick after his trauma, Christopher Walken went on an extreme diet of just bananas, rice, and water. The actors performed their own dangerous stunts, including the 60-foot fall from the helicopter into the river, which De Niro and Savage did 15 times. During the Vietnam scenes, they were subjected to the real heat, real rats, and real swarms of mosquitoes. Number 17, a dark legacy of historical controversy. For all its Oscars, The Deer Hunter carries a dark and controversial legacy. From the moment it was released, it was attacked for its historical inaccuracies and its racist portrayal of the Vietnamese. The film's most powerful and memorable element, the Russian roulette scenes, is also its biggest lie. There is no historical evidence that the Viet Cong ever forced American POWs to play Russian roulette. It was a complete fabrication, a metaphor for the randomness of war. Critics and veterans were outraged. Protesters from Vietnam, veterans against the war, showed up at the Academy Awards. Prominent activist Jane Fonda famously called the movie racist. This debate continues today, leaving the film's legacy forever tangled in questions of artistic license versus historical responsibility. Number 18. The genuine horror of real rats. During the POW sequence, the characters are held in submerged bamboo cages in a muddy river. To heighten the terror, Cimino decided to add a non-scripted element: live rats. He had wranglers dump hordes of rats into the cages with the actors. John Savage, who played Stephen, had a severe, genuine phobia of rats. That moment in the film where he screams, "Michael, there's rats in here, Michael!"
Oh, God! There's rats in here!
Isn't acting. He was actually screaming at the director, Michael Cimino, begging to be let out of the cage because of his very real terror. Cimino, recognizing the raw fear, kept the take and put it in the movie. Number 19. The cinematographer's uphill battle. The legendary cinematographer Vilmos Zsigmond had his own impossible tasks. He had to create the bleak, gray autumn feel of a Pennsylvania steel town while filming in the middle of a hot, green, sunny summer. The solution? A special effects team literally sprayed the grass with chemicals to turn it brown and manually stripped the green leaves off countless trees to make it look like fall. The priest of the church where the wedding was filmed was so worried the trees would die that he wrote to the crew in Thailand, expressing his relief when the leaves finally grew back. Number 20. The enduring, complicated legacy. Decades later, The Deer Hunter remains one of the most powerful and debated films in American history. The financial gamble paid off, and it launched Meryl Streep into stardom. But its legacy is way more complicated than just awards and box office numbers. The film changed how war was shown on screen, shifting the focus from action to psychological trauma. Its central metaphor, while a historical lie, became an unforgettable symbol of war's arbitrary cruelty. It's a landmark of an era when ambitious, difficult, and personal films could be made on an epic scale. It is both a masterpiece of filmmaking and a flawed, problematic historical document. It's a film that's impossible to watch passively. The production was a trial by fire, but through the chaos and the controversy, they forged a film that, for better or worse, burned itself into the soul of American cinema. Did we miss any strange, behind-the-scenes stories? Let us know in the comments. Deer Hunter, crowned by the American Film Institute as one of the greatest American films ever made, which is basically like saying, "Congratulations, you ruined us better than anyone else." Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep it real weird.
Wow, that was weird.